So what's the difference between selling puss and having that puss sold? I'm about to tell you. Nessa girl, I've been gone for a minute and I'm trying to come back with the jump off. And with this new jump off, I'm trying to offer y'all some different perspectives to life and just different things that I'm going through as I rapidly approach 40 years old, right? I realize that a part of what I've been going through is the fact that I've been doing this reality TV and pop culture commentary for so long that I truly have intellectually gotten bored in this space. And I'm so over, yes, God, that's a girl. Let me tell you what Nene Leaks did. Oh, God, did you see how Evelyn jumped across the table? I've been doing this shit for a decade now. And that's, my brain literally is beginning to feel like applesauce as I continue to try to be as entertaining in a space that, quite frankly, I've just grown out of. So what does the new and improved Q/Funky Dineva channel look like? And I realized instead of trying to put so much pressure on myself trying to figure out what would entertain y'all, I've had to take y'all out of the equation and allow my channel to reflect what's truly going on in my mind and what journey that I've been on. With that being said, I don't know if you guys could tell from a lot of my videos, and I've said this before in the past, that I am very fascinated by this whole human trafficking thing. And I think the one thing about the situation that is so fascinating for me is that it has now been presented to us like this, worldwide epidemic. I think Georgia or Atlanta was like #1 in the US for it. I heard something on the radio that says Florida is the #3 state in the US for human trafficking. And I'm just like, wow, how could this thing that you can't see with the common eye be such a big problem if it's for real, and that's what started my fascination. So in doing that, I now have a lot of open conversations with a lot of people that I run across, and the question that I'm posing is, what's the difference between human trafficking and voluntarily selling that puss? And how does it happen? And I've got some very fascinating conversations that I want to share with y'all first and foremost about sex work versus human trafficking. Now listen, if you're anything like me, you were raised in an environment in which you were taught that, prostitution and stripping was wrong, it was immoral, you're whores. If you do it, she's a whore, you're a slut, and all these other type of things if you lay down and give your body to somebody in exchange for money. So I was headed to a birthday party. I was at Bar 1 at a birthday party. Bevy Smith happened to be at their birthday party. We were sitting down having a good time, and I was just telling her about somebody that I run across at the down to the bar where the Honda cars be. She's a lady of the night. And I was just sharing my experience in talking to this young lady. And I made my go-to joke, work ain't honest, but it pays the bills. And through dialogue, Bevy Smith opened my eyes to something that helped change my perspective about some things, and maybe it'll change yours. Bevy said to me that sex work is honest work. There's somebody that wants sex. There's somebody who is willing to provide it for a fee, and they exchange services for a fee. No harm, no foul. It was consensual. And you know what? That small, brief conversation about that topic really did change my mind, because it totally debunked everything that I was taught about sex and prostitution and so on and so forth. Bevy said it right. There's somebody that wants sex. There's somebody that's willing to provide it for a fee. It's a fair exchange. No harm, no foul. And she used the words fair exchange as the litmus test for what constitutes it being honest work. And then I started thinking about it. A lot of people go and get massages, right? That's a person using their hands to bring your body pleasure for a fee. A hand is a body part, just like a vagina and a penis is a body part. In the grand scheme of things, what is the difference between me using my hands to bring you pleasure or my sexual organs to bring you pleasure other than morality? You know what I'm saying? And morality in America evolves as our nation evolves. Once upon a time, we found it immoral to drink alcohol. Once upon a time, we found it immoral to go to strip clubs. Now it's become a whole big culture and so on and so forth. And I'm going to be the first person to say this, right? I think that it is important as human beings that we begin to share the evolution of how our thought processes can change over the years, and we begin to be honest, okay? I have to be honest in this moment, and I am going to say this. While my outlook on sex work is beginning to change and evolve, I'm not quite there yet where I'm ready to say I'm okay with my sister being a prostitute or my sister being a stripper. There is still a lot of unlearned attitudes that I have to unlearn about sex work and about strippers. I'm going to be very honest and say, yes, I am one of those people who, I look at people who say they're strippers in a different light. You know, I was conditioned and taught to believe that, you were dirty and you were a whore and you were immoral and God wasn't pleased and all these different things. And I'm having to unlearn that behavior. People who work in sex work, it's still slightly uncomfortable for me and it still has a stench on it, okay? And I'm just being honest. And I know that some people, because their go-to thing is, well, people can feel that way about you being gay. And fine, that is fair. Because just like I've been taught that stripping is nasty and wrong and sex work is nasty and wrong and you're a whore, people have been taught the same thing about people who are gay. While I don't see a parallel between what I was born and what somebody else chooses to do, I recognize the fact that there's an army of y'all out there that's going to draw that damn parallel. So let me go ahead and do the dirty work for you. And the same allowance and understanding that I want for people to understand my plight as somebody who is gay, I am trying my hardest to make an allowance and be understanding for people who choose to work in the sex business. Now, here's one thing that we can't deny or overlook about the sex business. There's a lot of other stuff that comes along with it. Late nights, early morning, drugs, alcohol abuse, and the type of people who patronize sex business work. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of being. And it's the overall way of being that makes me uncomfortable about, sex work in a certain regard. But I have grown to the place where I'm willing to say, yeah, sex work is honest work. And just as long as it's a fair exchange, I really don't have no problem with it. Now, I'm not finna promise you that I'm going to have a barrage of people around me that work in sex work, but I'm not judging anybody that do. Advancing this conversation beyond sex work and now on to human trafficking and drawing some correlations and some differences, I had a situation that happened to me last week where a friend wanted to talk and was distraught about a human trafficking situation. Let me preface by saying I never understood it, right? Because I'm just like, you know, why? How do you get into this? Where are they picking people up? Are they just picking people up off the street and throwing them into vans? I don't understand that when you go out on a job with a John, why don't you just run away? This really can't be a problem. These people are choosing to be in this. I didn't understand it until I had a conversation with a friend last week that better helped me understand the situation, and I want to share it with y'all. Me and this particular friend were down to the bar with a Honda Cars B many months ago, and a gentleman came in from New York that was visiting. He was black. Normally when we see black people, we make it a point to be the welcoming committee. You know, hey, what's going on? My name is whoop-de-doop-doop-doop. I'm visiting from New York, yada, yada, yada. I come to town often with my business. Okay, cool beans. Unbeknownst to me, over the months, my female friend and this gentleman began a casually romantic relationship. You know, sex involved and everything. My friend fell on hard times. This gentleman came in town, stepped into the gap. You know what I'm saying? Was helping her out financially, helping her out where things were a little weak or whatever the case may be. In the midst of this, he was telling my friend everything she wanted to hear. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you're that. Oh, you're this. Oh, we're going to get this money together, this, that, and the third. Okay. Fast forward to the conversation that my friend and I just had this week. She, you know, was upset and distraught and very hurt because this dude said to her, after she had booked a trip to go to New York to visit with him, he said to her, in order for me to provide for you, you need to provide for me. And she was on some, what the, you know, WTF type stuff. He then went on to inform her, you know, that basically he was a pimp. And she was sharing with me some subsequent conversation that they were having, and this is where the aha moment went on for me. She was sharing with me that this particular person said, yeah, I know this girl in the shelter with 2 kids. I'm thinking about going to get her and get her an apartment. And that statement right there was the aha moment for me, where I began to realize how this thing works. It's a manipulation game, right? And you think about it, a woman in a shelter with 2 kids, that is a very vulnerable situation. He goes and gets her out the shelter, puts her in an apartment that he probably puts in his name. She moves in, and she's probably thinking, okay, I'm going to do this for 1 or 2 months until I get on my feet. I feel indebted to him. That's the least I can do. And then after those 2 months, she's ready to get out the game, but she still has these 2 kids, and he has control of her living situation. And bam, before you know it, she is stuck in a situation where she is now doing this sex work. She's probably scared to get out, because when she expresses concern with wanting to get out, he probably, you know, hits her, abuses her. And, you know, before you know it, she's stuck in the sex trade. The difference between selling puss and having that puss sold. I don't know. I just found it prudent to share this information with y'all, because if I was so confused about the human trafficking and the sex trade, then I know that there are other people out there too, and I felt it prudent to share it. Now listen, as I'm learning about this thing, and I'll continue to share with y'all as I learn, I recognize that there are so many various forms of human trafficking, and it all does not include sex. My friend attorney Sue Ann Robinson shared with me that human trafficking also comes in the form of, you know, I'm from China. I run a nail salon here in the United States. I help a family member from China who's in a bad situation or who's not in a bad situation get out of China. I help them get their papers. I help give them a place to stay. I help them get situated in the United States. They now work for me in my salon, my nail salon, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical by saying just because you're from China you run a nail salon. Whatever the business is, you now work for me, but that person is not getting paid. I did not realize until I had a lot of my female friends tell me that not a lot, but there are people that do y'all nails and feed y'all mani, pedicure, and polish change that are not being paid. That the owners of the salons are human trafficking them in that regard. Making these people work 10, 15, 18 hours a day, having them all live in one room or in a big working house. And they are basically making these people indentured servants until they pay off said, whatever the case may be, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, I'm realizing, and I've realized that where my mind was lost is that I took human trafficking to be people snatching people up in trucks, forcing them into prostitution. I've come to now learn that there's a much broader definition of human trafficking, and it includes, you know, indentured servitude, prostitution, people being forced to have sex against their will and turn over their money. Like, there's just so much that goes into it, and that is why it's this huge, large, you know, issue, because it does not look like one uniform thing. See, we've been taught that, you know, prostitution, which I linked to human trafficking, looked like Law and Order and the girl on the corner selling her body. Being friends with T.S. Madison, and I'm not speaking out of turn because we've spoken about this publicly, who was a former sex worker, also helped change my mind about sex work and recognizing the fact that there are demographics of people out there who are voluntarily into sex work. Case in point, a lot of our transgender community, or people who don't have a pimp and work the streets. They do it by choice, but it really isn't by choice because it's more by life circumstance. So yes, I'm out here on the corner and nobody is making me do this. But my economic situation or lack of opportunities have left it, whereas sex work is the only option available to me. And there was a quote, and I can't find the quote. It was from The West Wing. But the quote was something along the lines of, no young girl wakes up and says, I want to be a prostitute when I grow up. It's done by force or coercion. And as far as I'm concerned, financial need is a form of coercion. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, I may be on the corner voluntarily. Nobody's putting a gun to my head, but I gotta eat. And this is the only work that's available to me. So does that fall into voluntary sex work, or does that fall into environmental and societal human trafficking? Because human traffickers don't have to be individuals. They can also be institutions. Ooh, bitch. I just said that. Write that down. Write that down. We as society in the institutions at play can be human traffickers and create situations where people are forced into sex work. I will say this in closing. While I'm beginning to evolve in my way of thinking when it relates to sex work and whether it's honest or dishonest, I am still presently and currently of the belief that for most people who choose to get into that line of work, something has happened somewhere along the way. I personally can't wrap my head around somebody who has not been traumatized, somebody who has not been abused, somebody whose just emotional way of being has not been compromised, could voluntarily choose to lay down with person after person after person after person and not be broken in some capacity. Either you were broken going into it or you were damn sure broken coming out of it. For me and my thoughts about sex, it's just such an intimate act that I can't see somebody doing it commercially and transactionally, night in and night out, as a means of living, if something wasn't a little off. And I hope that that doesn't come off as me being overly judgmental, because I'm not trying to be, and I'm trying to show as much compassion as I can, but I can't help the fact that I feel like something happened to you in life that made you result to this. I don't know. I just wanted to have a conversation about human trafficking versus sex work, because it was something that's just been on my mind. Work ain't honest, but it pays the bills. For this conversation and others like it, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and I will call you guys later. Bye.